shortly my own research on this particular topic. And then I will talk about the impact based on this research. What do we find and what is the impact? And most importantly, how do we reposition ourselves and think critical, use critical thinking in AI? That would be our next step. So these are the topics that I want to focus on. As I said, feel free to ask any questions at any point of time. Okay, I want to start with a very specific definition of critical thinking. So the critical thinking in terms of literature, language, English language, the way it is defined is it's a purposeful, self-regulated process of analyzing, evaluating, and synthesizing information. So I use certain keywords. One is analysis, evaluation, and synthesize information. But there is one very important part of this definition is called self-regulation. That means I need to do it all by myself, self-regulation. It is critical thinking, it's my own thinking, it's not somebody else's thinking. So critical thinking includes self-regulation. And of course, after when I say all this, it must have some kind of purpose. So what's the purpose of doing critical thinking activity? So that's why you see here that critical thinking is quite effective in problem solving. You need to solve, that's the purpose. Problem solving, solving certain things. If there is nothing else to solve, then why do we need to critically think, right? So it requires a problem to solve. Then it has to include reasoning, because reasoning is what actually makes us think. And in today's domain, we generally don't think on one particular area. We generally try to integrate in multiple areas. So I think interdisciplinary is something that matters. And I use the word self-regulated, that means I do it myself, so there is a question of ethics. Because I don't want to make judgment based on others. I want to make my judgment based on my opinion, my thinking, my decision. So this is the way I define critical thinking in general. And humans have a very good advantage of, they are the only species which are able to think critically. No other animals are able to think critically. So that means animals can solve problems. For example, finding food, a tiger can hunt and they have to in order to survive. So they can have problem-solving abilities. They need to synthesize of different environments. For example, sometimes the smell to find out where is the food source, and they might understand the weather, they might understand the wind direction, so that's interdisciplinary. What they lack is reasoning, because that's not very clear. So that is actually an inherent quality of humans to be able to think critically. Now, critical thinking in the context of learning, I will focus on a few things. For example, how do we interpret, how do we analyze, and how do we infer, and how do we evaluate. And all of these in terms of problem-solving skills, and most importantly, I'm focusing critical thinking in terms of our learning purpose. So I said that it's essential for deep learning. Deep learning means if you want to learn something very, I want to focus and learn something. I want to really think critically. It's not superficial learning. I want to really apply on certain things, and that's why critical thinking is what we're talking about here, mostly in the context of learning. So now, as we have defined critical thinking in terms of learning and education, and in terms of humans in general, my next topic is actually summary of what is going on in terms of critical thinking and GenAI. I'm not going to talk much about GenAI because I think you have already heard or you already know and use GenAI. So I'm not going to talk about GenAI tools and different kinds of technologies. That's not the topic today. The topic is what is the impact of GenAI on critical thinking? That is what I'm really focused on. So critical thinking in terms of AI research tells us two things. Research tells us that critical thinking has been observed both as positive as well as negative ways in learning. Positive ways, that's called scaffolding, that means something to help, is it helps in providing self-efficacy, multiple perspective. AI acts as a reasoning partner. So in order to fine-tune my reasoning, I want to take help of AI, and that is where the AI can help as a reasoning partner for my critical thinking. So that is the research that is coming up and published in many journals. Areas such as medical domain, legal domain. For example, lawyers have started using GenAI to ask critical questions. What are the questions of the case? What are the questions that I need to overlook or do I need to consider? And that is where we are seeing that the critical thinking or the ability of GenAI to support critical thinking is actually coming up pretty good in complex domains. That's the research. I didn't post the research papers and the linkings and all because I just want to keep this presentation at a high level. But that is what the positive aspects of it. But at the same time, we are observing that in terms of learning, the use of AI is actually posing a threat to a lot of students. And in what way? And the terms are very clear to you, probably these terms. So the first and most important thing that is happening is called critical complacency. Complacency means lack of doing something. It's like I'm not interested, lethargy, or inertia. So critical lack of doing something. That means I'm not really thinking using my mind. And that complacency is coming to students in terms of use of GenAI. That is one of the findings. Second and very important thing is passive acceptance. And actually, I'm going to present a research and you will see my result. Passive acceptance, that means I don't question. I just take the exam answer as is because it is coming from AI, it is coming from ChatGPT, or it is coming from some other tool. I'm just accepting as is. That means I'm not questioning the authenticity. I'm not questioning and I'm not verifying the facts. So this is what is actually happening in that's what research says, the passive acceptance, and that leads to two things. One is called reduced analytical effort. That means because I'm already getting it, I'm not making extra effort. That means in terms of my cognitive effort, I'm not really putting into proper full effect because I know somebody is giving the answers. So I'm not really verifying it. I'm just assuming the answer is correct. So therefore, I'm not going to really spend time on it. And therefore, this reduced analytical effort is coming, which leads to what we are calling the new term that is coming up is called skill atrophy. Atrophy is the word atrophy is used in actually medical domain. So typically when people age, they lose weight. You have seen like a person who's 70 years old, it looks much thinner and weak compared to 40 years. And 40 years maybe. So atrophy is actually loss. In medical terms, it's a loss of weight, loss of muscle. So loss. But here, there is no physical loss. The loss is happening in the mental side. What are we losing? We are losing skills. We are losing ability to think. We are losing ability to challenge. Your ability to question. That is what the research is telling us in the last 1 year. I read at least 10 to 15 research papers, and I'm actually writing a paper on this. I was doing the literature review. So this is the typical summary that I found that negative aspects of GenAI is actually much more than positive aspects of GenAI as per the research. Okay, so I want to talk about research that I did last year, and I mentioned about I have a lab called ACI, Human Computer Interaction Lab. I'm going to talk exactly how they did it. But my motivation was based on the experience. Do humans process the GenAI responses differently? So when I say GenAI response, I would say, let's say I ask a question to ChatGPT and I get an answer. So, based on my trust on ChatGPT, based on my experience, do I process that information differently? So, what I mean by process, I'll explain to you in a minute. So, this was my motivation of the research, and I did a research experiment, which is a laboratory experiment. We have a ACI lab. So, what we do here, let me talk about the research question. Research questions is compared to instructors. How do students evaluate GenAI outputs? So I took two group of people. One is instructors, like our business instructors. Most of them, 80-90% of them have PhD, and I have like 25 of them. And then compared that with 25 graduate students who have, pretty, they are studying a master's degree, so they have pretty good knowledge about their topics. The area of domain that I chose was business analytics because that is what I really teach and practice. So my research question is how do instructors evaluate do instructors evaluate GenAI outputs different than students? Okay, that was my question. Research question. Now, if I ask just this question to anyone, probably you will not get the answer. First of all, when I asked students that do you use GenAI, most of them said no. But I don't agree with them. Most of them they use GenAI, so they were a little bit not hesitant to write that as a response. So I just can't do a survey. If I want to answer this question, I just simply can't do a survey. So I did an experiment with a pretty sophisticated system. It's called eye tracker. So basically, I put the information, the response on the screen, and I was tracking the eye movements through an eye tracker. And the eye tracker can tell which part of the screen you are looking at, for how long you're looking at, and then from where did you look at, what was the previous place that you looked at. It gives a very detailed information. But why eye tracking? The reason is eye actually works as a window of mind. So we look through our eyes. So if you're able to understand what eyes look at, we are able to understand what is happening in your mind. So the cognitive processes that happens in your brain is actually looked into the eyes. So we get different kind of data, different kind of numbers, and then we can compare. I'm not showing the numbers, but I'm showing you the result in a visual way. Okay. So here is the result, and I'm going to spend some time in explaining what it is. So what we get is something called heat map. So heat map is, let me just explain the concept of heat map and then I'm going to explain the results. So basically in this you are seeing two parts. Basically they are same questions. The top part is actually, this part is actually the question and this is a graph and this is the response based on the graph. Okay. And it says very clearly this is created by a tool. So the analysis of this is actually done by a tool. It was told to the subjects. So exactly this, whatever I'm showing you is exactly same as it is here. But this is what we found of instructors, summary of 25 instructors, where they look at, where they don't look at, where they spend time, compared to students. Okay. So I was talking about heat map. So what's the heat map? Heat map is where do you really spend time on and looking at it? So for example, if you see here, this is red. So this means people are looking at it much more, and they are not really looking. They are also reading this carefully. So darker color means people are spending more time on reading this, and that's the advantage of using an eye tracker because it tells exactly which region you're looking at. So, if you see the difference between this and this, what do you see? If I just ask you, and you have no idea of what heat map and eye tracking is, if I just ask you a question, do you see any difference in the pattern of these two images? Can anyone respond to that question? Let me repeat, I'm asking the difference. It's just a question of visuals. There are two visuals. Do you see any difference in pattern? One is a summary of this one is summary of the instructors. So all the instructors after the study, this is what I got, and all the students who did this, this is what I got. And all the red area that you see is the response created by GenAI, which was basically ChatGPT. So what do you see the difference in that? Do you see any difference? Anyone? Yeah, there's a hand raised. Can somebody?
बोले बोले बोले
Actually, sir, what I am saying that heat maps are, I think both in both situations look like same, but when you see the text, so in the left side it shows that many people read that text, but here less concentration was given to the right text. I think means they are using some shortcut or they are putting less time in the right side. I think this is my opinion.
Good, good, exactly. That is actually the main finding. So the instructors are reading this carefully, okay? And these are students, they're not reading it carefully, they're just superficially looking it and trying to finish it. There was not much time difference because they're looking at other parts. And we can, I can see exactly what time they're looking at. But also, you can see in this at the top part, they are also reading the word AI generated tool. Okay, so they got the clue that this is actually an AI generated stuff. So if I have not used this, they would have probably read it more carefully. So this word, or what I mentioned here, is it triggered. It gave a spark to the student's mind that okay, they are about to read something that was created by ChatGPT, so most likely it is correct. So I don't really need to go through that in detail. That's what happened in their mind. Whereas experts, these are experts, the instructors, they're reading it carefully, right from top to bottom, and they're reading it very clearly and carefully. So you're right, this is exactly what happened. This is just for one, so there are a lot of other part of the research, but just for this talk, I'm just presenting in a very summary way, summarized way. So I also collected something called trust on GenAI. So I asked a survey, at the end of this, I asked a survey to on a rate of, on a scale of 1 to 5, rate how much do you trust Gen AI? How much confident you are, like those kind of questions I did. And I found the students trust Gen AI more than the instructors. And when I did a correlation analysis with the trust and the time spent, I found that more you trust, less time you spend. So that means if you trust on GenAI more, then what's going to happen is for those students, this is getting less and less. Okay, so it tells the story very clearly that this was what we found, and assuming that the response is correct, that's what the students think. This is a part of it. There are other research that I've done. It's a little bit big research. Anyway, so now the question is, this is what also other researchers have found. I'm not the only one. The other researchers also have found that. Now, what is happening is, I use the term which is called, critical complacence or mental atrophy, right? So basically, what is happening is AI over-reliance on AI can lead to the effect of cognitive erosion, that's atrophy. So that means our ability to think critically might go lower and lower and lower, which is not a good thing. Why? The reason is it offers instant answers, instant, because it doesn't take much time. And if you have to do the same analysis all by yourself, you would spend probably 1 hour, 2 hours, and somebody's giving you a few seconds. And that's a huge difference in terms of what AI is able to do and the way it is perceived. So this research also I did analysis of perception of AI, which is also another kind of research that we can talk later. Okay, so what we found here is when we use AI for unstructured use, then people use shortcuts and people really do not engage materials deeply. So this is another research finding that we are exploring that. Unstructured use. What is unstructured use? That means I don't know exactly how to use. I just ask a question and I will get the answer. Even I may not know exactly how to ask the question. Okay. So this is a problem because when so what the research tells us that when AI has been used in a structured way, that means you are forced to ask certain questions, maybe like challenge this part of the answer, ask why this is the reasoning. So when you ask in a structured way, that doesn't impact critical thinking. AI is used in unstructured way, it impacts critical thinking. This is what the research tells us. Okay. So unstructured way, and that is what the GenAI is exactly doing, because GenAI doesn't follow any structure. I can ask anything at any point of time. Right? Now, so what should we do now? If this is what is happening in the real world, we test it in the lab, we find people are doing this, students are being affected. So my question to you, and I know that quite a few, or maybe all of you are actually instructors or faculty, and I represented the facts of research. The research tells us that cognitive atrophy or complacency or passive acceptance, these are all happening with the use of AI, Gen AI. So what should we do? This is my second part of the presentation. But before I go, I want to hear from you and what you do to prevent this kind of things happening. or what are your thoughts about it? That okay, students may not learn or learn critically. So what should I do? I set up the context so far, right? The context is very clear. I showed you some examples.
बोलो बोलो
I showed you the research. What do you think? What is going to happen?
35 centers.
Sir, good morning.
Morning, morning.
Actually, what I do generally in classroom, sometime I have seen the students are doing the assignment using the chat GPT, and they are not writing the exact thing what we have given for the assignment. So what I am telling to the student to avoid this, use the textbook that I am preparing in the classroom. You use the textbook so that you will get the relevant answer and content that I am doing. Thank you, sir.
So use of textbook. If I allow students to use the textbook, then probably they're not using AI in that context at all, right? But what do we want to use AI? I want them to use AI. I want to use them some kind of GenAI. What should I do? In other words, that means what you're telling us is okay, fine. We are going back to the old days when we used to give exam on pen and
नहीं
paper,
सही बोलो
right? Take away all
हाँ
the
से बोलो
exam, computers, turn off their mobile phones, turn off the internet, and give the paper these exams and shit.
उनको दिख
But what are the other ways?
So, one point I will make here, as we can't exclude this use of ChatGPT or certain other GenAI apps in terms of present generation because of their interest. What I feel is that there could be a certain aspect of the syllabus and there could be certain topics, those could be assigned to the students with specific cues in form of words or technical terminologies, and then let them do it, and then as it should be followed by viva voce also, because see, writing is definitely easy and it has become more easy by using all these things, but when it comes matter of speaking, then definitely if the person has done rigorous exercise mentally and in terms of understanding, then only the person will be able to perform. So what I feel is in present time the oral examination should be given due weightage.
Right, right, okay.
That's
Yes,
what
I
I-
agree with you 100%. Which is actually coming to my other points on soft skills. Because when we learn, it is important that communication and what we do with it is quite important. But this is only one aspect, right? So we still have not solved the problem because we want them to think critically. Of course, if we can take interviews or or oral part. That is, we are talking strictly on evaluation. If you remember what we have, what I got the answers from you is the way of evaluation. But what if I want to focus on learning? Okay, evaluation is one thing, learning is other thing, right? So let me give you some ideas on my thought process, which I said that would be the last part of the presentation. But before that, I want to quickly touch base on few things on what are the core competencies of AI, and can we actually leverage them to help provide critical thinking. So AI is actually it can support our decision making. So we have made some decisions. Can I validate them? So that can be the role of AI. So instead of asking AI or ChatGPT to tell me what is the decision, I make my decision and then validate that. So that's the purpose of understanding whether my approach is correct, whether what am I lacking, how am I lacking. Second is deep engagement. How do I interact with AI? Am I being taught that okay, if I want some answers, and as the one who said that they are not answering the right question, right? That was what I heard from one of you that they are not. The answer that they are given and the question that you have asked, the answer is not matching. Why? Because they have not been trained enough to ask the right question, right? So how do we train that? So that's another skill that we want to. Because you have to remember that no matter what you do, when they go to work, they will use GenAI. And in fact, we have to teach them how to use it in a certain way so that they can actually benefit of it, right? We cannot prevent it. So rather than discouraging them completely using the ChatGPT or other tools in colleges, we need to find a way to use them so that they can, when they go to work, they can actually get real benefit out of it. For example, coding. Why not allow them to code so that they can write code faster and but at the same time, the write code, not the time or the quality becomes key issue to it. Okay. The third one is interrogation. That means I want to challenge what AI is doing. And let me challenge. More I challenge, more I am able to get my thing. So that means I am considering that I'm going to use AI to for critical thinking and how can I make it better by using these core competencies of AI. Okay.
Same.
So you have to understand that AI is actually a tool. It is not a mind. So whatever it is still a tool. The moment AI becomes a mind and AI is equal to human, then I think that's the end of the conversation, right? Then a machine can replace us and the machine can do whatever it can. But we have not reached to that stage. At this stage, AI is a tool. So we have to use it as a tool. And how can we use it as a tool to make our decisions in a better way? So that's why it says that humans must verify, humans must contextualize and judge information. So the reason the students are giving a different answer when the question that was asked is because of the context. They didn't understand the context, right? So rather than penalizing the students for not for using GenAI, we should actually not everywhere. Of course, it is not everywhere. We should encourage them using certain part, but in a much better way. And I'm going to show you some examples. Okay. So we have to improve AI in terms of brainstorming and reflection, and we have to take away that we should not allow the passiveness, passiveness that I talked about earlier, passiveness. So how do we improve this? And one of the things that we often use for reflection. So I'll give you an example. When we teach a course here, they write an assignment, or do the assignment in coding or whatever it is. It could be management or any kind of, you know. Then what we do is, or even when they take a class, like for example, they attend 2 classes. So what we can ask the students is to write, and we call it the reflection paper. And what do you learn from this session? Okay. So the reflection can be done in 2 ways. That I give a piece of paper, or they can write in computer, and they would write what they have learned in the class. So they would say that, okay, in today's class, what I learned is this. Okay, I learned this concept A, concept B, concept C. So that's where I'm using reflection as my goal. And then we can use AI to modify it. So when we evaluate reflection, modify what? Modify that, what else can I learn? Where did I lack? Okay, the teacher was teaching this concept, but this is my reflection, right? So when I match the reflection with my concept, there is a lack. So what did I lack? What did I not understand? So the assignment that you would grade is 2 things. One is what the students actually wrote and what AI told in terms of what else the students should have spent time on, what else the attention should have been, what else the students is lacking, and then the grading will be a whole. Okay? So this is one example of how to use critical thinking in terms of reflection. But there are other ways. And one of the critical thinking is to consider AI tool or GenAI as a collaborative partner rather than depending it completely and making a decision, making it as a partner. So what do you do as a partner? Like when you do a team assignment, like let's say there are 3 people in the team, 3 students in a team. One student is going to do one task, second student is going to do second task, third student will do third task. So let one task be done by AI. So that's where the collaboration could be. For example, if I already have come up with a set of inputs, AI can tell me what else I can do with that, and it's diversifying. AI can predict That's called strawman. Be a strawman. That means be a like a umpire. I don't take a stance. It is right or wrong. I'm just telling you what you should be doing. So I give the answer, and what it does, AI will actually critique it, analyze it. And some of the tasks that I really can be done by AI pretty quickly, let it do it. Rather than I spend most of the time on doing the routine tasks, let the AI do the task. That is fine. But I will focus more on creating a diagram, creating, analyzing this credit. So basically, the example would be the students again does this task in two ways. For example, you are giving an essay. So let them write the essay without use of AI in a simple piece of paper, or they can write it in whatever they want, and then they upload in ChatGPT or anywhere, and they are trained how to predict that, how to analyze it. So AI does the analysis of it. AI will tell that okay, you are lacking on these skills. You are not considered. You have not considered this automated. So basically, you are considering AI as a collaborative partner. That means I am just like a third person in my team who is looking at my analysis and assignment and giving me feedback. So that is the role. And that entire dialogue. So you remember this whole thing is actually a dialogue. How I converse with the AI. That is what the assessment should be. The dialogue with the AI, not. So that means what kind of questions I have asked. If I have asked 10 different questions in 10 different ways, I will grade those 10 questions. Okay? So that leads to the other part, which is assessment. So, assessment, our focus should be on process over product. So, most of the time, what we do, I'll explain the difference between process and product. For example, if a student writes an essay, the essay is a product. How they write the essay, that is the process. And our evaluation should shift more to the process and less to the product. Because product will always get better and better in the media. But we need to teach them how to make it better. So that is where we should focus on the use of either reflections, show me the, like how did you prompt, show me the prompts, how did you make the answer change, how did you change the answers. So that is when our focus should be more on the process and less on the product. I'll give you another example that I actually practice in my graduate course when I give them data set, a pretty large data set. It's a term project which I give them and a business problem to solve. And data set might be pretty big, like 100,000 rows, 200,000 rows of data. And then I tell the students to analyze it using certain software. Maybe I'll ask them to use certain Python codes or R. Sometimes I'll use data visualization tools such as Tableau or Power BI. So I do not know whether the students have done it themselves or they have used AI. So in my grading, 20% of it will be the actual product. That means I see the report. I just look at the report and okay, it's a good quality. I'll give you 20 out of 20. But 80% of that will be on the process. So what they do is they prepare a video. Each student or a group of students will prepare a video, 2 minutes video. In that video, the focus is to explain how did they create the solution. So in my case, they will start with, okay, I use certain techniques and here is how I clean the data. And then I use this tool, and then I used this kind of algorithms, and this is how I get it. Even if they use AI there, it is fine as long as they explain it. But if they use AI and they fail to mention that in the process, then they are penalized. Okay, you see the thing that is happening? Few years ago, this entire project could be focused only on presentation. So presentation and the final report. Now I go to do student presentation. And if they do student presentation, they need to explain more about the process. How did they develop? How did they clear the concepts? How did they come to that analysis? Because if I just focus on product, they can create an excellent presentation done by AI. AI now these days is ChatGPT and create very nice PowerPoint. They can go directly to Canva and create PowerPoint. This is able to do. But when you ask the questions around the process, then the evaluation completely changes. Along with the process, we need to put AI in the collaboration loop which I earlier mentioned, that AI as a collaborator. We have to be partner with it. AI cannot be a rival. AI has to be a partner. If we treat AI as a rival, then we'll be in a problem. But because we cannot prevent use of AI. If the moment they go out of the classroom, they're going to use it. The moment they prepare, they anywhere, if they have fun, they can use it, right? So you cannot prevent it. So rather than preventing a technology that is being highly changing and useful to a certain extent, why not we encourage them to use it in a different way? Use it as a tool, use it as your collaborator, use it as somebody to improve your skills in terms of how do I ask questions, okay? How do I get critique? How do I get analyzed, right? So that's what AI can help. The human will initiate, AI will generate. Human will critique, and the word that we often use is curate. Curate means refine, integrate, to make final judgment. So human will do the final judgment. So here's another way I often ask students to create this kind of solutions. For example, they create a report, but I tell them to create two versions of the report. One report is to be presented to a CIO who has only 10 minutes of time. So your report has to be very precise at a very high level. And second report is for the software managers or software developers who need to know things in much details. So if you're able to create these two kinds of reports, that means you have learned and applied your critical thinking. Because you have to put yourself in a CEO or CIO's position that what I need to know, what I don't need to know. And that's where AI can help. So AI will challenge that, no, this is not a report that can be presented to a CEO or CIO because it has too much of detailed information. You should delete this. You should. So then, when they prepare these reports, I need to see how the process. What the question? What was the original report that they created for the CIO? And after use of AI, what the report was actually created. So what I'm using students is more like involving them into more into critical thinking mode in terms of refinement, in terms of learning. So when they get absorbed and when they get involved, then if I do a heat map, it will be very different because heat map will be very engaging because I'm going to look at the answer, read it again, look at the question, refine my question, read it again. More I do this kind of going back and forth, that's how I learn. Okay, because research tells us that feedback is one of the best ways to learn. And that is what I'm trying to say, that we can use that to make ourselves, critically think. At least the students, that's what we want. So I'm coming to the end of the presentation that the human side is the most indispensable side. Humans are the ones who should make the judgment. Humans are the ones who should present. AI cannot make a presentation. It can make a presentation or create a presentation, but it cannot make a presentation to a CIO or a manager. No, a human has to do, right? So that means AI is still being used as a tool. And so individuals so therefore should use the judgment and creativity. So judgment is what I use. Judgment of which information to be shown to CEO and which information to be shown to manager is what I need to know. Or let's say a client. A presentation to a client is very different than a presentation to a customer, a known customer, right? So there are different perspectives, and that's what students need to learn. And that's exactly what we need to do is to focus on how to learn things faster and quicker with the use of AI so that they are much more valuable in the organizations, right? Because ultimately they have to use these tools in the organizations. So this concludes my presentation, but I want to just summarize this. What I really said so far is I started with the one concept of what is critical thinking. And critical thinking has a very important concept here, which is the ethical view of critical thinking. It can be rational, it can be all other aspects. But ethical view is very important. That means I have to be all by myself, right? That's the whole purpose. Critical thinking can be of only you, not about somebody else. So I started with that. Then I summarized the research findings of the use of GenAI in critical thinking in education. And my finding says that at this point of time, the negative use of the GenAI and critical thinking, the effect is much more negative than positive. What we are observing is the terms such as critical complacency, that means lack of interest, passive acceptance. That means we are accepting, the students are accepting responses, which without really doing verification, they are not really putting their mind, and mental atrophy. That means or skill atrophy. They're not really putting their mind and they're not engaging. So this engagement is missing. So this is what the research tells us, even including my own research. And in terms of solution, my solution is not to treat AI or GenAI as a rival or a competitor. No, it is not. Use it as a collaborator. Change your perspective. Think it as a team member. How can it help you or the students to make a better decision? Learn, teach them how to interact with them, how to improve them, how to critique their work, and think that as a team member. And then I think we will be able to utilize it much better than what we are doing so far. Okay, so that's all I have as supposed to present. And I would appreciate questions from you right now.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Balan, sir. That was really an enriching session with your valuable insights and your discussion towards the statement that we should always use AI as a collaborator, just not depend on it completely. That's really big one of the finest statements today. And I now open the pool for question and answers. So, yes, ma'am, that's a question.
Hello. Hello, sir. Firstly, thank you so much for such an informative session. I'm Dr. Chavi Vijay. Sir, my question is that you talked about cognition. Cognition itself is a very is an umbrella term. It doesn't only include the neurochemistry or the biochemistry or the brain function. It also includes the social interaction or the environment. So my question is, what are the changes that you can suggest that we should implement in terms of these two domains, which can invoke the critical thinking or the ideation process in students, or we can include such changes in our teaching style to basically facilitate the environment and the social interaction that students are taught into.
Can you clarify the two domains? You said what are the two domains you're referring to?
The environment and the social interaction that students are subjected to.
So environment and social interaction. Okay. It's a pretty deep philosophical question that you have asked. I believe it's not easy to answer in such a short time. But I will try because one of my research areas is cognitive psychology. And what I have seen that to make somebody more socially interactive, socially accepted, soft skills are becoming more and more important. So, as actually one of your colleagues suggested that Wi-Fi is one way to test it, but Wi-Fi is actually what I'm going to use it more in terms of evaluation. You need to open up the student's mind. So, if I use the concept of critical thinking, I would be able to think critically if my environment is positive. If as an instructor, I'm talking of you in general and others, if you all the time think students to evaluation, that how do I evaluate them, how do I evaluate, then they will always be stressed out, right? But if you allow them to think positively, open up their minds, and create a very friendly environment, then you will see they open up. They will, for example, if I go and ask, did you use ChatGPT to do this assignment? The answer would be no, I didn't. And then you would come up with a method to evaluate it, right? So you would go and find out, use another third-party software and find out whether there is a, use of AI, it's all that you will do. But the problem has already started. When you ask that question, then did you use it? So, in terms of social environment, what you have to do is create an environment for the student that you allow certain percentage of evaluation or even in the class without evaluation to broaden up their mind, to open up their mind that okay, it is okay to use AI, it is okay. And how do I do it? I will encourage you. I'm going to show you how to use AI. Look, here is a topic, and I want to investigate on this, and here is a general question that I'm asking. I'm not getting the response. So what should I do? Let me ask questions in a certain way. Okay. So for that, I need to learn certain concepts. So let's learn that concept first.
Right.
Right? So open up their mind. So in order, like what I'm really telling you is to create an environment which they are friendly enough to open up and say that yes, I did try that now, but I did work because I didn't know what questions to ask to ChatGPT.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Yes, sir.
Very good morning, sir. This is Dr. Ashutosh from the Department of Physiotherapy. A wonderful presentation, a few take-home messages, especially the use of structured AI for development of the cognitive memory. Sir, my question is that you talked about cognitive atrophy or the mental atrophy. So we have seen, can we just say that only the unstructured way of using the AI can lead to cognitive atrophy? And the second part of my question is how we can use this generative AI to actually have the hypertrophy of the cognitive part, which is to induce the cognitive hypertrophy. So what are the measures that we should take to induce this cognitive hypertrophy in the students as well as us?
The answer to the second question is not easy because the research, there is a lot of research going on in that area. But the first question that you asked is if is the unstructured use all the time lead to mental atrophy? I don't think so. This is what the researchers have found, but the research is always evolving so far. So what they have found is that critical thinking in even in unstructured domain is not affected much if the domain is very complex, which I did present in my research. So in let's say in the medical school, the use of generative AI is highly encouraged so that students are able to ask the right question. For example, if you diagnose a disease and you ask more and more questions, and as if you're into and you're learning or asking questions as a doctor, as a physician, right? So it is not correct to say that only unstructured use of AI lead to mental atrophy. That is not the case. But what I've seen that in legal and very highly domain complex domain, even unstructured questions, unstructured way of use of AI may not lead to that. What is happening is when the topic is very general or students already know a little bit about it. That is where, like basic topics, even let's say learning about English, learning physics, chemistry, and they are not applying their mind. So that is my issue. But in terms of how do I take it as an advantage and make it and like a profit to and make it as a positive, we don't know yet. What I recommended is some techniques, and we have to do more research on that whether these techniques work or not. In fact, actually, I'm doing a research right now where I have created my own GPT, more my own GPT with my own knowledge base and everything, and then I am doing a research with two group of students. One group get unstructured form of information. The other group use AI to ask only structured way of information. And I am evaluating that in which case the learning is better and how it is better. So this is my next research that is going on in this area. So yeah, research is going on. It's not easy to say that what exactly we need to do to remove mental atrophy. It's too early to comment on it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your very much comprehensive and extensive information shared in terms of structured use of AI in classes, so that can be a great help for the present generation of teachers as well. Sir, I just want some information regarding as there is some proposed hybrid model of society nowadays by some of the socialist and futurists, that is bazaar within sustainable civilization. So, what will be the role of Gen AI, which is frequently developing parallel in terms of this particular hybrid model? Because,
Can you
see,
explain the hybrid model? I didn't understand what
sir,
exactly
it
you're
is,
referring to.
they have proposed bazaar within sustainable civilization. And this frequent development of AI and other instruments uh, is
So
existing.
sustainable what? You meant
Sustainable civilization, sir.
civilization.
Yes, sir.
I'm not aware of these terms and bazaars. I didn't really get your question. I'm sorry, I didn't really understand that. What if you can just mention it in a
Sir,
brief, in the layman's term?
let me simplify. Let me simplify it. Sir, nowadays there is lot of we can say lot of focus is there in terms of market market type of structure. So everything, let it be it is education or let it be other things.
Oh, I see.
Okay. So everything is nowadays is moving towards this
Yeah, so we are
market
referring to
structure.
like knowledge is a
So,
commodity,
yes,
and knowledge
so
is something that can be sold, right? Education can be sold. So there's nothing but intellectual to it. Yeah, commoditization of our thinking, of our intellectual property, that is very problematic, right? Because ultimately, if you start thinking in that direction, it will be a problem. But GenAI is just one kind of technology. That is not the only kind of AI, or there are a lot of other technologies. Technologies will come and go. That is not a problem. That is not a problem. It will come and go. Like GenAI is going to come, and advanced version of it will come. But I think we have to be careful in this. The thing that you mentioned is the human component.
yes,
So human component is very important there. The human component, when I mention the word, or use the word human component, it is about compassion, empathy, thinking, helpfulness. So all these are trust. So how do we develop these that are more important than use of this technology? Otherwise, everything will be commoditized and sold with a certain value, dollar value or rupee value. But we need to bring this human skills more into it. And how do we do it with the use of AI? Probably not with the use of AI, but that could be what I would say is a complementary thing that we need to teach or inculcate to students. What I mean by that is why we provide this technical education, use of AI, use of GenAI, all that. Parallelly, we also have to think how to build a character of the human, of our students, how to bring them, how to think positively, how to bring that change in their mind so that they are helpful. They are, in general, become a good human. What are the things they need to be to become a good human? If we are able to inculcate that, then I think technology is not going to disrupt the way the next generation or next generations will happen. I'm sorry, I didn't maybe not answer your question very
no,
clearly
sir,
because I didn't
it's
understand it
fine.
completely.
So see, technology is not a problematic situation, but whatever technology is diverting towards the instrument increase, and that instrument increase is creating, I think, the threat to the environment and our existence also on this earth. So that is my concern. So how things,
Yes. So that's another aspect of it is what you call it the technology dependence.
yes,
So, that is what is really a big problem. In fact, in US, we have seen that people addiction to devices, and that creates a lot of problem to us because we are not using it as a companion. We are using it as a part of our own, as if like a phone is an extension of our own body, right? That's a problem. And what has happened is, this has been realized in quite a few countries in Europe. I know there are a lot of countries. In US, all schools have banned the use of mobile phone. You cannot use a phone in the school anymore. You cannot even bring it. So they're discouraging it. So in Australia, students cannot, at a certain age, are kicked out of social media. They're no longer part of it. Now, those are the things that can be enforced, but I think the human aspect of it is actually the parents' responsibility to teach them that look, you might have a phone, you might have a device, but use it judiciously, so that you don't become a dependent on it, you don't become addicted to it. I encourage my students to have a time out and go and play and do something else so that you are away from digital addiction. That is, I think, a bigger fear to me.
yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions from anyone? Okay. Thank you so much from the audience for putting up such interactive questions, and thank you so much, Dr. Palaska, for addressing it so well. Moving on, I would like to invite our Associate Dean Academics and Foreign Affairs, Professor Dr. Mukesh Yadav sir, to share his insights towards this session.
नहीं नहीं कहीं से
Good morning, sir.
It was really an honor to have you in this international workshop on applications of GenAI in design thinking, critical thinking, and innovation. We really appreciate your efforts, time you have given to present, to come up in midnight of USA. This is almost midnight of USA, and you have come up and you have shared your highly informative, enriching, thoughtful session with us. So we really feel pleasure to have you with us, and we really thank you for your time. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing this session with us. And we are around 150 faculty members sitting in this hall, and we really feel enriched by your session. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your time, and we look forward for having long-term association with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for. I didn't give a lot of time to look at this. I think Pradeep ji told me last week only, and I said yes because I have done some research. So I said, okay, let me give it a try. A more in-person and interactive session would have been much better, where I would have could gone into some detailed exercises. Generally, in this case, I would actually ask you to give you some feedback with a real exercise. That's it's not easy to do it in Zoom session.
Definitely,
So like
this was very enriching session, as Dr. Mukesh told. And thank you very much for giving your time. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So moving ahead with the session, we are expecting Dr. Mahipal Jadeja sir to be here. He's in transit. He's almost in wait to be reaching university. So I would request to take a small pause and we all be seated in your places. We'll take a small pause in between the session, and as soon as sir joins. Yeah. Yes. Meanwhile, we have Dr. Sunil Bhardwaj sir with us. So I would request the co-host, Chavi Vijay, Dr. Chavi Vijay ma'am, to kindly take over. No, thank you, sir.
Just welcome. This session is on.
Very good morning, Sunil sir. Am I audible to you? Very good morning, sir.
Good morning. Yes, it's pretty good morning.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining. May we request you to kindly turn on the camera. We just wanted to give a brief introduction of yourself.
So this whole thing, I'm sorry, my session is at 1:30. So am I supposed to be starting the session right now or how?
So we'll be having your session afterwards. This is just a brief introduction in between so that we can actually make our audience aware about you.
Sure.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Very good morning, sir. As you already heard, you are almost 150 faculty members eagerly waiting to hear from you. And our next guest is in transit. So, although this is just a formality of giving your introduction, everybody has seen and are excited about your session. The posters, they have seen it. So, let me formally introduce Dr. Sunil Bhardwaj, sir. Sir is a senior analytic training consultant at SAS India, also a SAS certified data scientist with over 14 years of combined academic and industry experience. Sir has been deeply involved in IFRS 9 enablement, advanced analytics, credit risk modeling, and anti-money laundering solutions. Sir has supported leading corporate clients including ICICI, ANZ Bank, Accenture, PwC, Grameenphone, and Idea Telecom through his high-impact analytics and training initiatives. Also, Sir holds a PhD in analytics and his expertise spans a wide suite of SaaS technologies along with more than 15 research publications in national and international journals. Sir, we are really honored to have you with us today to enrich our workshop with the insights. So, can we have a round of applause for this, sir? Maybe, sir, in this time, if you can enrich us about the topic which you are going to take, or the key highlights which we will be getting through you in the upcoming session.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks a lot, and it's pleasure is all mine. And thanks for inviting me here. It's so nice to have such a nice audience. Well, the topic, as far as the topic was, you would know in detail, obviously, but the brief idea is, see, I want to talk about practical innovation. See, when we say GenAI, I'm going to show some IDC surveys, what kind of money the corporate world is making out of GenAI, what are all the industries and what exactly they're doing to come up with business solutions that is helping the business world. And towards the end, I will also briefly tell what kind of SaaS solutions exist in the space of GenAI, what are the latest trends and developments that are happening. So I would say I'm probably, I don't know how you take it, mine would be less of a research, but more of a practical, ground-based, result-based use cases, I would say, I would put across for you to ponder. So that would be my focus.
Great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, sir, for this brief introduction about this slide, about the presentation that you are going to take. So we'll be soon catching up you at the time of your dedicated session. Thank you so much, sir, for the introduction.
Thanks. a lot.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
It is actually not mandatory.
आगे आ. हाँ. Easier. लाइट ज्यादा आ रही है. लाइट का रिफ्लेक्शन इधर कैमरा कैमरा जो कैप्चर कर रहा है ना लाइट का रिफ्लेक्शन वेरी डन. आप यहीं पे रखो, यहाँ से ठीक आ रहा है. फिजिकल आ गया ना. बस सही है.